Lydia.
Think we should be good to go. We might have some last minute joiners, but that's okay. Can everyone hear us okay? You just want to shoot me a message in the chat? We should be good. All right, awesome, cool. Well, happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. So my name is Lydia Hanowich. I work at Catapult on our emerging markets team. So I basically work with high school programs, smaller colleges, club programs, promoting our wearable device, Playertek. And then today we have Kane, who's a soccer coach at North Myrtle Beach High School in South Carolina. So today with this webinar, we just really kind of want to connect coaches during this time, because like a lot of us have more time than we usually do. And I think a lot of people are pretty curious about how this technology is used at the youth level, high school specifically for today. So Kyle's going to walk us through his experience with our Playertek product, and our thought is to make it very conversational. So if any questions come up, just put that in the chat box, and then we can address that towards the end of the webinar. So this should be planned for it to be about 40 to 45 minutes, but we're looking forward to it. So Kyle, do you just want to give us a little bit of your background with soccer?
Sure, thanks, Lydia. My name is Kane, 52 years old, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Grew up in New Jersey, played youth soccer in New Jersey. Played college soccer in Jacksonville in Florida. Go Dolphins. And then got out of school. My brother, who was coaching my niece's travel right at 8th grade high school age, asked me to come train his team. So started training his team, and that definitely set my mental side of coaching to a whole new level, because the mental side of coaching girls is a lot harder than coaching boys. Just say that. So girls coaches, well done. So then, as most coaches get into the game, coaching on a full-time basis, well, I had 3 boys, and they all wanted to play soccer. So of course, you got to coach. And then it just became more of a passion about coaching, learning as much as I could. Television industry in New York City for 25 years. So my background in technology definitely came into play because I was always searching for something, something to help the boys, something that, if it was just video and games to go over for just review, or, looking at devices, looking at, anything that would give us an edge. So I was coaching my alma mater in New Jersey, and we were, it's different down here in South Carolina, because our season isn't until, the winter and in the fall, in the spring. So in New Jersey and most northern states, it's in the fall. So you train all summer, and then you go right into your season, which works out because you have 2 or 3 months where you can train and get the boys in, your peak shape. Here it's a little disjuncted a little bit, because you can train off the ball in the summer, and then you have some dead periods, and so it's a little harder. But the reason why I got into the GPS, because for 2 years in a row, my high school team, we would train all summer. We'd be in a great position. Kids were fit, and we'd play our scrimmages. We'd do fantastic. And then about the 3rd or 4th game, you would see a drop off. There would be some kind of peaking your finger on. You pick up some knocks, you pick up some little longer term injuries. So about 4 years ago, I was down at the United Soccer Coaches convention. I believe it was either Baltimore or Philly. I forget. And I was looking, just as most coaches down there, just walking around looking at every single cool thing that there is in the soccer world. And I met DJ, which worked for Catapult, and he and I talked for probably about an hour, and I explained to him, what I was looking for. And, he explained everything about the GPS, the Catapult GPS units. So we stayed in touch. I brought it to my AD and the school. We just couldn't afford it. It was, it was a financial decision. They liked the idea. So when I came down to Myrtle Beach, Coach Wheeler and I, this was in June, and we're doing a fundraising meeting with the parents who by far are the most supportive, best parents that I've ever had, we've ever had. And we were going over what our goals were for fundraising, and I threw out the idea of, we really wanted to bring this program to the next level, because there aren't too many high schools that are using this kind of technology, and leveraging, training with technology, with video. So the parents, two parents stood up and said, we were going to work on fundraisers. Two parents stood up and said, we'll pay for them.
Mhm.
And it was unbelievable. It was like Coach Aaron and I looked at each other like, wow, this is crazy. So they wrote checks right there, and within days we had the units, and by mid-July we were in our off the ball training. We were using them, and we had, I don't know, maybe 60 kids that were coming to these sessions, maybe between 40 and 60. So we bought 20 units because that was a price point we could afford. And we decided that we were going to bring those across the whole program. So not just the varsity players from last year, but every third session, a new player would get it, so we could build a baseline on the whole program, and not just, our juniors or seniors or kids that had played varsity. We wanted everyone to. So we had to be, I don't know, 20 sessions maybe of baseline data, and then we went from there. And then, we can get into how our season went. But the GPS, the data that Playertek provided was a huge, not only did it help us build future sessions, it helped us, the kids communicate with us about how they're feeling, how their bodies were, everything about it. And then it also, you can, in the Playertek app, which I'm sure you could explain better than I, you can do head-to-head comparisons. Like the kids they loved it. They were doing, top speed and all the cool metrics that GPS data.
Right. Yeah, and I was really excited for you too, because that's actually, or as of right now, you're the only high school in South Carolina using it, and since then we've had a lot of traction across the whole country. But I would have loved to have that technology when I was younger, and I think that's a crucial point, because that's when those athletes are deciding if they want to compete in college or not, and it just really helps keep them accountable, and then they just become so much more aware of their training. And I look back, and I really prioritized my training when I was that age, and that helped me compete at Clemson. So just the more athletes that have that access to technology, that's huge. And I'm sure they all love it too, wearing the vest. They must feel pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, because one of our first games this year in our tournament, so the kids were, because we always put them on right before we went out, so everyone turned them on. So we had, which we'll go into later, where we can tie in to the vision software, the GPS data. But they were, a couple of the kids on the other team were staring at them, and one of the kids heard him say, are they wearing bras? Why are they doing that? And it's kind of cool, because then you see, the EPL, you see, La Liga, when they're coming off the field, they've got, the GPS harnesses on.
Right.
And it definitely brings a whole nother sense and level to their confidence, I think.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, I think we call it man bros for when we're working with our men's teams. No, awesome, great to hear about that, Kyle. And then, yeah, I just thought this stat was pretty interesting, but I was just looking at a report. So there was a report that showed that injury incident in male soccer players, so adolescent athletes, it was found to range from 3.7 to 11.1 injuries per 1,000 hours of training. But then it was actually 9.5 to 48.7 injuries per 1,000 hours during games. So you can see that big divide versus practices and games. And I think a lot of it comes down to not being aware about our training and not planning accordingly. And just having the wearable technology can definitely help take that guesswork out of it. So what have Kyle, what have injury rates been during your coaching experience? Have you noticed any trends throughout?
Um, well, I mean, as high school coaches are all too familiar with, it's almost like soccer triage, which is
Mhm.
right now it's not, but it's because they cram so many games into such a short season that
Mhm.
at the club level, you may play two games a week. You play tournaments on several weekends or some of that, but that's different. Tournament play is different than regular season play, where you have at least 2 or 3 days in between games where you can first recover, and then you can do a video session, and then you could do a tactical session. So you have the 3 days where you can, the biggest thing, especially at the high school level, is the recovery, because
Mhm.
that's, I mean, the overuse injuries and injuries that just, you have a slight twinge in your hamstring. That doesn't go away if you're playing 3 days a week and trying to get some kind of training in, because you can't play and then recover and then play and recover and play and recover,
Mhm.
because tactically you never work on anything. You never get better. So Coach Aaron and I, we decided we're cutting the number of games, significantly than have what they've done in the past. Just because we wanted to use the data to build sessions and build recoveries. I remember earlier in the year, we had a player that came off the bench, and it was I think our championship game. We went into overtime, but he came in and he didn't, like, time wise, he didn't put as much time in as a starter. But then we looked at the data, the distance coverage, his player load, and he was well over the kid that had started in front of him. So the next day we gave him the recovery day instead of the kid that didn't have the numbers. So
Mhm.
had we not seen that, I mean, you just look at, oh yeah, he was on the field for, out of 80 minutes, 60 out of the 80 minutes, the starter. And we would have never known that the player who came in actually put more, you know, distance on his legs than the other player. So we only had, I think, one player that had shin splints. That was the only injury
Really? Throughout the whole
that
season?
we had all year. And then the year before, oh, cut rate is a lot higher than I remember,
Mhm.
because we just didn't take it into account,
Mhm.
or they actually are a lot greater now. But last year we had, and granted, we only got, unfortunately, through um, six um, 6 games this year, due to you know everything that's
Mhm.
happening. So, but trending wise and looking at the data, we are on a great, unfortunately, we are on a great path to have a
Yeah.
really, really good year.
That's pretty rare to hear about. No injuries for a soccer season, especially at that level.
It was unbelievable. It was,
Yeah.
and you know, and we would look at. I mean, after every game, Coach Aaron and I would break down the video and the data, and I'd send them the reports, and we would, we'd come up with a training session the next day,
Mhm.
or a recovery session, depending on how, what numbers we had. And in the past, we would have never have done it. Now, Coach Aaron, played for the Union, so he was used to, you know, that using that data for your training. But as
Mhm.
far as high school level, that would have never have happened.
Right.
If we would have played, in the past, if we would have played bad, and say our back line was too flat, and we looked at video, and the next day we would work on, we would actually work. We wouldn't give you a day off. But if your back line could be flat and you may not play well, but you may have worked hard,
Mhm.
then you really have to give them a recovery day. You can't, because, and across the board in high school, it's the team that is fit and has most of its, not, if not all of them, most of your better players at the end of the season that go far in state tournaments.
Mhm.
If you have injuries, towards the end of the year, your state runs are usually pretty short.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting to see how coaching has just transitioned throughout the years. And before, as they used to work you and overwork you most times. And that's kind of why I got motivated to be with Catapult, because by the end of my career, like I was just pretty drained, and I was thinking of going to pursue rowing at the national level. But at that point, I was just pretty dead, and we didn't really have any structured plan for our training, and we didn't really have recovery sessions. Like there were days we were rowing 4 hours a day. But it's great to see now that we have this information, and we can prevent more injuries. But we do have a question that just came up. So when creating the benchmarks for your high school athletes between age groups, what meaningful performance metrics did you use in creating those specific benchmarks? I think you mentioned player load, distance.
Yeah. So for me, I think the biggest and the reason why we could use these benchmarks, because the kids, every player was doing the same drills. Like, so we didn't have and it's weird down here. It's like you start in 7th grade to play on the high school team. Up in New Jersey, it's, you got to be in high school to play on the high school team. So we really have to take that into consideration. So they do the same drills. And so so I had 3 7th graders on JV team last year. So they were my younger kid benchmarks for the age group from 7th and 8th graders. And then, 9th, 10th, 11th to 12th, there were kids that we used, you get the high kids, you got the low kids, and then somewhere in the middle is going to be your benchmark. Now you're going to have kids that kind of go up and down in between those. But Catapult does a really cool thing where you can I share the screen real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So let me share it. All right. So let's do this. Okay. So do you see that?
Yep. I can see
Okay.
it.
So the dotted line is a professional, and you can change the metrics in the Catapult app. You can change your metrics. So that middle line is for an average pro. Now you can go to an amateur, you can go to a high school player. Of course, then that'll bring it down. But the pro, because that's what we kind of want them to strive for. Because they look and they say, okay, Sadio Mane covered 7.5 miles for that game. So they all know that, because they hear that. So then that's how we created. And this was one of our championship games. So you see, you have 4 kids that covered a pretty good amount of distance in a game. I think 6. God, my eyes are terrible. 6, almost 6.5, over 6.5 miles. Now that's for a high school kid. That's moving. That's a lot of that's a lot of hard work. And so it is hard to create that baseline for multiple age groups. So I just picked 2 different age groups, one younger guys, one older guys, and found the middle, and then used that as a benchmark. And we tried, and that's why we kept rotating the GPS units. So the kids would get comfortable with the data, and it was it was twofold. It was for them to say, okay, yeah, I need to start working on I need to move more. You have your work ratio. It's standing to moving, and you show them that, and they're like, and every kid can log in and see their own what they're doing. So the accountability, is the numbers aren't lying. That they won't lie. We had one malfunction with the GPS unit because the player forgot to turn it on. That was the only time that we ever had an issue. So you say, hey, listen, you got to move a little bit, and in the past they'd be like, well, no, I was working hard. Well,
get away with that anymore.
You might have thought you were working hard, but did you look at your numbers for the last training session? Mm-hmm. And most times they were like, yeah. And then we had kids that were, that had been on varsity since they were in freshmen. Mm-hmm. And they're like, man, I got to start working harder. I know. Yeah. I looked at the numbers. I just got to start working harder. And I tell you, that player was having a crazy good year for us.
Mm-hmm.
And he realized that, you know what, to be up there where I want to be, I'm going to have to move a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely motivating, especially for those kids on the team that might be the underdogs, and now they can, show how hard
Absolutely.
they're working and work their way up.
Yep.
That's awesome. And do you think your athletes are pretty bought in across the board? Do most of them have a good understanding of the metrics or what they're looking at?
Yeah, without a doubt. So when we first started, we had a team meeting, and we went through. We had one session, and then we brought all the players in for all the programs, and we went through. We pulled the Playertek, logged into Playertek. I loaded all the data from the night before, and then we went through every metric. Distance, sprint distance, workload, player load, and we told them exactly what everything meant. And the kids who had been in the session before, what they did and what they need to work on. And so, and you really don't even need to tell them what they need to work on. They see it, it's in the graphs. They could print it out. We could send PDFs to them. We can create, month-long, week-long, year-long, in the distance they've covered, in every metric it'll show, and we could send that to them. And I think a couple kids have, they were putting those in their college resumes for soccer.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
it was a cool, we have, one of the central midfielders in our program who wants to play at the next level. And this is they asked me, they said, can we put this in, because the player, he as a central midfielder, he works unbelievable. I mean, his numbers are crazy. And as a coach, I'm like, wow, this isn't lying. This kid, he really covers a lot of ground, and he's, and you do heat maps, you could show where he is, he doesn't, he's a great, central midfielder, he stays, between the boxes, and he distributes, and he's both sides of the ball, both sides of the field. So it's no, it definitely is it was a great investment for our program.
I'm glad there's an academic component to it as well. I think that's great that they're putting on their resumes, especially where tech's going now. That really is the future. If they can show that they have experience handling all that data, that's excellent.
Yep.
Great. And then I think we have another question too. Oh, maybe not. Did you want to walk us through the Playertek software again? Is there anything else you want to show us, or?
Yeah, we can. So I'll go to my share screen again.
Yeah, maybe the heat map. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So we'll just do. And I don't want to pick that kid. It's my son. I don't want to pick him. All right, we'll pick Armando. Okay. So if you're looking, and this was, the numbers are a little higher because we played an extra time. It was an overtime game. So you see first half, second half, and then this is overtime. So with this, you can see his sprint distance as a striker. His sprint distance was fantastic. I mean, that's the line for pros. And then, his sprints, so what we try to do is we like to see all these diagonal lines. That's what we like to see from our strikers, because we don't play the game, up and down the field. We play outside and then to inside, and get our strikers in good positions where they can actually score, and they don't have to beat 8 people to try to score. So, you look at top speed, and I think his top speed, those meters per second, but I think it was like, 18 miles an hour. We had a kid that topped 19.5 during one of our sessions. So of course that's a big thing for them, because that's an absolute competition. His work ratio as a striker, you're not going to have the same work ratio as one of your central midfielders. Especially your holding midfielder. He doesn't stop. Well, he shouldn't. So his work ratio is going to be a lot higher than 52% of pros. But you want to see certain metrics like distance. You want to see certain metrics like sprint distance and sprints. and top speed for your strikers. Defenders, you're going to have less distance, but you're going to have more power plays. You're going to have more impacts. Our backs were pretty big backs, so the energy used is going to be a lot higher, just because they're 200 pounds and then they're moving. So and then if you look at session summary, it's a really good quick kind of number to look at for games and players. Let's see. There's a couple of games now. So 41. This was a game where he only played half the game because it was the competition wasn't as good, and we told him that, listen, you're going to play a half, and that's all you're going to do, because it's a good day for you to recover, and it's also a good day for us to get other players in. So if you look at his numbers are going to be skewed, but if you take it as a half, they're not bad. It's not these numbers. It wasn't the game that he had. I think he had 3 goals in this game. So it is a little different, but it definitely gives you awesome numbers to work with, and a great asset for the program and the team and the players.
Absolutely.
And the parents, actually, because you have an issue where, okay, well, one of the players isn't getting as much game time as another player. Mm-hmm. Well, then you can always have this as a backup and say, hey, well, you know what, if you want to know his numbers, ask him to look at it. Mm-hmm. And then they'll the numbers don't lie. It is what it is. If you're not working hard in training or in a game,
definitely helps make your case to parents. I'm sure some crazy parents out there. But.
Well, yes, but not this year, because
our good.
Parents.
Maybe.
I'm not just saying that because hopefully some are on, but they have been phenomenal. They really have. It's unfortunate that in the bigger light of world issues that this is kind of minuscule, but it is very unfortunate that this the boys can't be on the field, because they worked for the whole summer, and some of that were not numbers as in GPS, our data numbers, but just numbers of pure kids. It's the summertime, and most high school kids, they're not thinking about, and we couldn't even be on the ball. So it wasn't even like we were scrimmaging and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It was just pure fitness. And we had 40 to, 60 kids there a session.
Awesome. We did have another question come up about that student athlete experience. So how does your staff educate the athletes in teaching core principles like recovery, mental health, and accountability to prepare them for the next phase of their career?
So, as I said before, Coach Aaron is he is phenomenal at relaying information like that to the parents, to the students. He played for the union, so obviously coming from a professional background, nutrition and sleep and recovery are all very, very major parts in the game now. And we have a common team app that we push out, all kinds of stuff to them, and a lot of it is about off the field stuff, academics, and the importance of good sleep, and the importance of skipping the basket of fries for a fruit salad. A lot of stuff. We're not reinventing the wheel, because it's been out there for a long time. Yep. We're just trying to get the boys to understand that if you want to go to the next level, if you want to be, as Coach Aaron says, the best version of yourself, you do have to take care of certain things that you would never think about. Mm-hmm. What high school kid, would think about nutrition in the off season? Not really, not too many. And that was a huge topic, and it was brought up, and it still is brought up, even though we're not playing. we're expecting the boys to train on their own. You know, there's no reason why you can't be on the ball, you know, in your living room, you know, or on the garage door, or, you know, going for a run on the beach. Well, now we can't go on the beach anymore, but going for a run just on the street, you know, we don't have to be together for you to still improve.
I love how you have that holistic approach too, because especially at that age, that's when they should be educated on nutrition and mental health as well. And it really comes down to those little things if they want to compete at the collegiate level. And out of your athletes now, are a lot of your athletes planning to play in college, or?
We had, yeah, I would say, you know, we had a good mix of age groups. We have a really strong sophomore class. And a lot of those guys are, you know, doing, you know, the preparation, doing the ID camps, doing, you know, meeting with coaches, playing in high level club teams. Some of our seniors, I think they could. I don't know if they're going to. I think that they will at some level. You know, if it's the club level in college, or if it's, you know, going to a D3 school, D2 school, whatever it is, I think they should. I don't know if you know, if they are. I think they should. I think they're good enough. I think I think they have to believe it in themselves. I think, you know, we had a pretty tough year last 2 years, and they were a big part of the team. So it's you know, this year hopefully open their eyes to say, you know, if I do work hard, which I have been, I can play at the next level. So I hope they do.
Mm-hmm. Another question. Great questions, everyone. Appreciate it. Does this technology make it easier to keep the players who aren't getting as much playing time fit?
Absolutely. So when we have, we'll have a game, and then our training sessions, and which some of the boys were on the call, our training sessions are a hell of a lot harder than our games. You know, our training sessions are pretty. I mean, if you look at our numbers, our pure numbers, some of our training sessions have been way past what the boys were doing in the game. So what we do is that if, you know, and again, this Coach Aaron bringing this from, you know, his background, you know, if some of the boys like next day, some of the boys have, you know, a complete day off. So they're just recovering, they're stretching, they're just going for light runs, and then the boys that didn't play, we're in a training session that are as, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, either it's going to be, you know, small inter squad scrimmage, which if you know, work on smaller sided scrimmages with the right intensity, it's a lot harder than most games. So we'll take that into account, and that's how we keep everybody fresh. You know, and again, what we talked about limiting the number of games is that, you know, your competition throughout the year is going to be, in the high school level, is going to be pretty vast. Like, just because, you know, some regions have, you know, 6 or 7 really good teams, and some may have 2. So you play 4 hard games in your region, and then you have games where, you know, it's harder to keep them engaged than to actually physical play. So those games, you know, the players who usually don't play will play almost the whole game. And then in turn, they'll get the recovery session the next day because they put the time in. So, you know, you got to make sure you keep the mental side of the players fresh, and also the physical side, you know, and it's hard, but again, with the technology, it makes it a lot more manageable. Not easy, but manageable.
Absolutely. And do you feel, just with starting to implement the technology into your practices, do you feel like your practices are a little bit shorter and more efficient? Has the time changed at all? Or?
I don't know. They haven't become shorter.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely are more efficient. And, you know, we work where, so we were in the beginning, we were filming a lot of our training sessions, and then we'll go into the Vision software if you want to after this. Okay. Real quick, I don't have a ton of time. Mm-hmm. but we would film training sessions, and then we'd look at the data, and then we could match the training session drills to the data and see what kind of, you know, output the boys were given as far as GPS, as far as the data. You know, in this drill, you know, you could draw it up on paper, but what does it actually do? What do they need? What is their heart rate? Where are they? What's their player load? What's, you know, what distance are they covering during this drill? So the combination of the planning, using the GPS data and using the video all together, your drills, you know, you may as a coach, you may say, oh, you know what, this drill worked fantastic last year. You know, this was a great drill last year, but you have different players, you know, so players, for some reason, mentally, they don't like the way the drill, and they don't say anything, but mentally, they just don't get engaged with the drill as much as other players from last year did. So you could say, okay, this is going to be a great session, but it turns out where they're not working as hard because they don't understand the drill, or it just doesn't make sense to them, or they'd rather do another, you know what I mean? Like, so it definitely helps with planning sessions when you see the data that backs up certain drills.
Awesome. Yeah, I know a lot of people kind of had questions about the planning that goes into it. So that's really, really helpful to hear. And if you have time, did you want to transition to vision and just kind of give us?
Yeah, so we'll do it real quick. Let's see if I can.
So Vision is our video analysis platform that Kyle's using.
So can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
So this was this was championship game against one of the local teams that you know, we hadn't beaten in a couple of years, and you know, this was a little bit of a benchmark for us. So Vision software is, and coming from my television background, I had started a production company just for this sole reason, about, you know, showing kids, because most coaches, and I don't have to tell you guys, but if you tell a player something, like, okay, yeah, you gotta stay a little wider, you gotta get the ball out of the middle a little quicker, whatever it is, they're like, yep, and they may not really understand. You show them, it's a whole different world. Their eyes open up and go, oh, yeah, okay. So here, we were just working on, this was keeping the ball moving. All right, so this is, and so we input the GPS data, and you can telestrate. So this, so right, so now you could stop the ball, you could stop it, or holding midfielder, he took a great angle, you know, got the ball, won the ball back, you know, didn't panic with the ball, right? Plays a nice, easy ball. So now, so during our video sessions, right? So our striker, right? And we've told him in the past, listen, keep the ball moving. Don't stop the progression of the ball. Our attacking midfielder had tons of space. So now we can do this in real time while we're talking to the players, and telestrate and say, okay, keep the ball moving. All you had to do is knock one more. We had 3 passes in a row. The ball is moving. Let's see what happens. So now our flow is fine. You know, that's okay. We're still possession of the ball. We're keeping the ball moving. Right? Again, simple little triangle, and our attacking midfielder is 1v1 with their central back. You know, or if he takes the ball, he's at least 2v2 with our outside midfielder. But we hold the ball and we lose it, right? So then you go and say, okay, look at, had you moved the ball, we had 1, 2, 3 guys. Our defensive midfielder took a great position at the top of the 18, and he had tons of space. Had we bounced that ball right in the beginning, we could have had the ball in that position, and we're almost 4-on-3 on the back. But we lose the ball, and you know, it is what it is. So that's the Vision software, and it just makes, you know, talking to the boys and showing the boys a lot easier, because then it's not where coach or just sitting there telling them, okay, you can't do this, you can't do. We're actually showing them, and then they get engaged and say, okay, if I bounce the ball one more time, I would have had this. And they're like, okay, where is the other? And so then they get engaged, and then it becomes not just a video session of us just telling them what they did right or wrong. They're actually talking about it amongst themselves. And then that's when you get your team to really buy into, wow, this is really cool what we're doing. And they hold each other accountable. You know, they were mad at him. They're like, hey, listen, you don't pass the ball, dude. We're not gonna do anything this year. And then, you know, he started knocking that ball back and spinning and going and then opening in that space. And then we would take it, and then he had a couple tap-ins this year just because he kept the ball moving, knocked the ball, spun off it, and you know, found easy goals instead of having to beat 5 guys in the past where that's what he would have had done.
It definitely helps enhance their accountability. And do they all watch the film together is it after the day after the game usually?
Yeah. So one of the great things with the Vision platform is, so that clip, right, that I showed you with all the illustration, we can push those to the players on the Vision platform, the app on their phones, and they get, and it says you've got new videos to watch from your coaches, and then they can go in and actually watch that exact video. And so we do that before we have the session, so when we go into the session, they know, kind of have an idea of what we're going to talk about, and so they come already engaged to say, oh yeah, I saw that, yeah, I should have done this, I should have done that, or, you know, hey, you know, why don't you try, you know, so they're ready when they come. And it's been a great, you know, and that was an added on tool that I didn't even know about until, I think, Lydia, you know, suggested that I take a look at it, and it was fantastic. And I went to our AD, who is extremely supportive, and asked him if we could add that on, and he was like, do you believe in it? I said, I really do. He goes, okay, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the reason why Vision's done so well, it's been within the last 2 years that we brought that on and developed it. It's just so easy to get up and running with. And then, like you said, it's a perfect teaching tool with the illustrations and everything. And I know growing up, I was a very visual learner. So it's.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think kids are. I think it's question for you. Are there a lot of high schools that are using that?
So right now it started off mostly with colleges, and then we've had a few high school basketball teams come on recently as well. I want to say we have one other, not in my territory specifically, but I believe we have a girls soccer program using Vision. But mostly right now it's really basketball and soccer, and then we're kind of breaking into lacrosse now as well. So all field sports.
Right. Yeah, it's a great platform.
Awesome. Yeah, and we've been making a lot of changes to it too, so it only keeps getting better, which is great. Well, thanks so much, Kyle. I think this is really useful for coaches of all levels to hear and hear about your experience. And I just love how you brought the student athlete component of it too, making sure that you're enhancing their wellness and overall well-being. So thanks so much. Is there anything else, any other thoughts you have? Or?
Awesome. No, Catapult's been a great partner.
Awesome.
No, I think that, you know, if coaches are looking for, you know, and honestly, there are a ton of GPS units out there, you know, but I love the support that Catapult gives you. I love how, you know, they're always willing to answer questions. Always, you know, I've had some, you know, questions that I've asked Lydia or Ross about the Vision, and they were within minutes getting back to you. And, you know, it's just I think it's a great partnership. So.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us too. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me. I'll send a follow-up email just to give you a little bit a survey to see how the experience was. But this was our first webinar for emerging markets, so it was definitely a success. Thanks to Kyle. All right. Have a good Friday, everyone. Stay healthy and sane.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Lydia.